Om Shri Sai Ram, with love and reverence at the divine lotus feet of Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba, Sai Ram to one and all. This evening, we are indeed fortunate to have with us Mrs. Rekha Rangaraj, a multifaceted personality whose life beautifully blends creativity, intellect, and deep devotion to Bhagwan. Mrs. Rekha is an accomplished wedding and event planner, co-founder of Samyog Wedding Planners, one of Tamil Nadu's pioneering end-to-end wedding planning companies. Her creativity and vision have transformed countless celebrations into works of art that reflect beauty, culture, and harmony. Beyond her entrepreneurial achievements, Mrs. Rekha has also had significant roles in corporate and literary domains, having contributed articles, research papers, and speeches for reputed organizations. She is the author of Digvijayam, published for Sri Satya Sai Trust, and Sai Antaryami, a reflection of a deep spiritual journey. She also wrote a weekly column titled Chennai Visitor in the Economic Times Madras Plus supplement. A poet, writer, MC, and creative artist, Mrs. Rekha has touched many hearts through her work and work. Yet, above all these accomplishments, she humbly declares her greatest identity, that she is a devotee of Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba. Without further delay, let us welcome her with a warm, heartfelt Sai Ram as she takes us on a journey of love, faith, and transformation through the divine grace of Sai. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, loving pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Swami. Let me also add so much gratitude and so much love for this opportunity that has been given to me. It is a very emotional moment in my life, actually. The bird with you, the wings with me, the foot with you, the way with me, the eye with you, the form with me, the thing with you, the dream with me. So are we free, and so are we bound. So we begin, and so we end. You in me, and I in you. These words of Swami have actually shaped, I think, every living moment of my life. And I would like to be extremely grateful and thankful for the organization which has given me the privilege of standing here and talking to all of you. Above all, if Swami thinks I am enough to come and share my experiences, I don't think I can be more honored or blessed in my life. I started my journey here in 1981, many years ago, 4.5 decades ago. And strangely, it was at the 60th birthday. It was also a milestone year for our beloved Swami. I was seated here next to this door. And I was a Bal Vikas guru working for Mrs. Vidya Srinivasan, who was the first Bal Vikas convener of India. And for his 60th birthday, that January, we were going to plan celebrations with the children of every state. So I had actually gone searching. Now everything is so easy, but then I had to run around and hunt and find a 3-tiered cake. I searched harder for a 60-number candle, and then made a huge 4-feet cake for Swami to cut and then serve all the students. And I was sitting there, and at that point, being in my 20s, nobody is going to call me and come and speak to people like I have the privilege of doing now. But I so desperately wanted to come and speak in front of Swami. So what I did was, I took all the big pop songs in English, like Top of the World, ABBA songs, whatever was popular in the 80s, and I changed around the lyrics to be all about Swami's teachings and devotion to Swami, and I trained all the Bal Vikas children to sing it. So when they started performing, I was thinking, gosh, if only I could tell Swami, I actually wrote all of those words. And that is the limitation of the human mind and the stupidity of a young girl. Of course, he knew, why would I have gotten the opportunity to do something like that? So every time I said, I wish I could tell you, Swami, and he was like right here, he would turn and smile at me. And then I would think, oh yeah, he actually knows that I did this. There was a little boy called Shriram who was my student. He was as bright as a button. So like this, whatever I wanted to say to Swami, I put down into a little welcome speech for the Balvikas function that day. That little boy probably did a better job than I can, in my wildest dreams, ever imagine that I could do. Swami was so enthralled, he walked up to that boy and materialized something for him, blessed him on his head, and then he turned and smiled at me as if to say, yeah, I know. I know what the source of this is. But that was the day I really wished that my voice could be heard, not because I'm anything fabulous or wonderful or great. It's just because I wanted to be able to share the fact that, oh my God, he was such a gift in my life. With all the limitations that I had then and all the lessons still yet for me to learn. So here I am, it's 4.5 decades later, and I have been given this opportunity to come and speak to all of you in the very same hall, almost in the same spot, where I made a very, very sincere wish that I would actually like to come and share my voice and my thoughts with the people. To me, this is probably the greatest validation of my journey as a devotee of Swami's for my almost 5 decades that I've been blessed to know him. So let me go to the very beginning of my Sai journey. I actually saw him when I was first 5 years old. Swami then used to stay with Mr. and Mrs. Ishwar, who were on Maharaja Surya Road. And the Gogineni house was neighboring house to all my relatives on Kasturi Ranga Road. So Swami would give his darshans to all these people who were his devotees at that time in the Gogineni house. So my cousin and I were hanging over the wall looking because there were pandals everywhere, people were swarming. The maid servant wanted to go and see the Samyar, the one who was looking after us. So we were taken into that house because of her, and she said, these are the children from next door. So they put us in the front row. But when Swami came, nothing prepared me for how amazingly different he looks from anyone I have seen in my life. And people started crying and, falling forward, and it was just so much emotion and hysteria. My cousin became very scared. So she got up and she ran out. I actually didn't want to run, but because she ran out and pulled me, I had to get up and run out with her. And so I must have passed by about 2 feet in front of Swami, all the while looking at him like that and going. But that association, for some reason, created a fear in my life because I was 5. And I began to imagine that there was something scary about him. Life went on, and then I became 21 years old. It was 1981, and no connection with anything to do with Swami. But my mother was in the US visiting my 2 sisters. At that time, she went into a coma all of a sudden and was hospitalized. And my father had to go rushing from here to find out and see how to help her. About 10 days later, she got diagnosed with something called aqueductile stenosis, and she came back home full consciousness. And in the middle of the night, on the day that she came back to my sister's house, she woke up in the middle of the night because somebody was shaking her awake. And she says that she smelled vibhuti, which is very strange because in a Vaishnava household, nowadays things are different, but you never find vibhuti there, and certainly not in some corner of America. And then she opened her eyes and she saw Swami standing there. She didn't know who he was, but he gave her an Abhaya Hastam, and he told her that, why fear when I am here? I will take care of you. And then he vanished. So the next morning she got up and started off, I need to see this person who came to see me. Then they hunted on, whatever magazines they could find, found his face and decided he was Sai Baba of Puttaparthi. That same day, my two sisters were watching television in the US. The screen went completely blank. So they thought perhaps it's an electrical failure, but it was not. Swami appeared on that screen. For a few minutes, they were scared to tell each other because each will think the other is crazy. Like, how did this change? And then they kind of confirmed to my mother, yes, it was Sai Baba. He did appear on that screen. And, she traveled back to India. She had to stop in 5 different places because that's how unwell she was. She was on very strong medication, couldn't see the sunlight. And she kept telling my father, I think even if I can't go to Puttaparthi, this Baba is going to come to Chennai to see me. So we all thought she was aberrated, of course. But the then president of the Satya Sai Seva organizations was General Mahadevan. He suddenly had some cardiac issues. So in the middle of the year, Swami made an unprogrammed visit to Chennai in June, which normally he would come only in January for the Sundaram anniversary. So my father spoke to people because Amma was obsessing that she had to see him. We found some devotees who were, Swamis, and they said, come, we'll take you and go. By then, my sister, who came back with her, had already become a devotee, kept telling me, you don't understand, Rekha, he's like God, you just don't understand. And I thought she was nuts too. But we came to Sundaram. Of course, we had no idea those days what the crowd would be, what it would be like. We came and stood outside the ladies' gate. They had just closed it because the place was full. But for some reason, when the 5 of us came, they opened the gate and we came walking inside. And they were getting ready to take the Aarti for Swami. So I saw the devotion of people around me, and the only thought I had was not that he's God, but I thought, wow, imagine feeling that much love for some divine being, or at least these people are saying he's a divine being. But when they took the Aarti, I got angry. I said, how dare they take Aarti? He's a human being. They cannot take Aarti for a human being. He's not God. What does he think? As usual, Swami had this capacity to connect with you when you were not at your best. So he turned and he looked at me like I got one direct glare. When I got scared, I kept quiet. Next morning, we had Nagar Sankirtan. Again, they woke me up and I came grumbling all the way, stood under that lotus. And I was thinking, these people are mad. Each one is saying he's looking at them. There's hundreds of people here. How on earth are they ever going to know that somebody is actually looking at them? And it was kind of dark. It was 5:30 in the morning. But that's what happened. I found him looking down at me like that. I just became silent, didn't say anything. And about a month later, I came down with jaundice. So I was tied up to the bed for a whole month, and the same devotees said, Swami's come to Whitefield. So my sister jumped up, came to Whitefield. She kept saying, Rekha, write a letter. What does it cost you to write a letter? I never wrote a letter. Then, Brindavan Express used to leave in the mornings at 6 o'clock. So she was leaving for the station at 5. So I woke up at 4:30, God knows why. I wrote this horrible letter. I mean, I am deeply, deeply ashamed of it even today. I wrote a letter saying, all these people are saying you're God. Really, if you're God, make it possible for me to come and see you, at the end of the week. I mean, you just look at the idiocy of a person that's stupid. But this was Swami, right? And I didn't know who I was taking on. So I wrote this letter knowing full well nobody is going to allow me to travel. Not definitely when I'm getting out of jaundice. But my sister comes to Whitefield, and Swami came, and there were old devotees of Swami's called the Panikars that Swami always showered a lot of grace on. So he went and stood in front of my sister and gave her namaskaram. And in that excitement, she forgot my letter, but not Swami. He said, sister, letter kudutachi, ennache? So this ghastly, horrible letter that I wrote, she took it out and gave it to him. I was so scared. But 1 week later, this was a Friday, the following Friday, I was in Puttaparthi, sitting on that sand because my mother wanted to go and my father was traveling. So I had no option but to travel with my mother. So the first day in Puttaparthi, it was so different than it is now. It was just sand. There would be like 200, 300 people and people would say, oh my God, there's so much crowd. But everyone said, Amma was not well, you pull the lots for the lines to go in and sit. So she got the first row. Then we went down and we sat. We were actually a total of 10 of us. So Swami came walking. The closer he came, the more and more scared I became because the power of that personality, it is just overwhelming. And as he came next to us, he spoke to the lady who took us, but he was looking at me like that. In that one moment, I thought, my God, he knows everything, every single thing that I have inside my head, he actually knows about it. So I was actually feeling very vulnerable and exposed because I thought Swami knows, like he looks into your eyes and your soul is bare. Then he said, Ittana per kootin vandache, enna pandrathu inda gang vechindu, he said. So that aunt said, Koopudungo Swami. So he called us. So the whole lot of us trooped and went and we were sitting, everyone was sitting in this very organized way in lines in the veranda. I was curious and I was not aware of the rules at that time. So I kept turning like this and looking. And then I watched him coming all the way into the veranda. I was still looking like that instead of looking reverently down like everyone else. And then he came to me and he said, hey, Yarni. And then I'm like, I just sort of muttered out my name. I wish you would ask me now. I could say I'm you. But then I was just someone who knew nothing. So I just muttered out from my name and he said, Engendu vandache? So I said, Madras. Then he said, Yar kude vande? And then I said, Amma kude. He said, and then he called us. Everybody was trooping in. Again, it's the monkey mind, right? So everyone went like this. I looked like this as I went past. Then he looked at me and I was so blessed. He materialized Vibhuti and gave it to me. That's the first time I actually got Vibhuti from Swami was when he materialized it. I was too overwhelmed in that interview and I just was watching everybody talking. And my parents, as usual, very preoccupied with trying to get me married. And me saying, no, I don't like this name, I don't like that place, I don't like this city, because really I didn't want to get married. I was having a good time. So he was talking to everybody. Suddenly he looked at me and said, hey, ellathukku no sollindrukke. Solla matten me. And I didn't know what I had to say no to, but I said, solla matten Swami. It was actually about my marriage. And then he said, he told my mother, Hindu tradition is for the parents to find the horoscope. You bring the horoscopes to me and I will guide you when the time comes, which is what he ultimately went on to do. And my mother, who was very unwell, her complexion had become dark, swarthy. She's a very, very, really fair lady, but she had become so dark with the ill health, looked like an unwell person. As we got up to leave, she did namaskaram and we got up, only I was with her in the room. So he actually touched her head and he told her, you are a very strong woman. You look after your mind and your mental health. I will look after your body and your physical health. And so we came out and we got back into that Brindavan again. And it was almost like the first miracle we all saw. When she got into the train, she was this dark, unwell-looking lady. By the time we reached Chennai, 6 hours later, complexion had returned back to normal. All of us kept looking at her face like, what just happened? So I think for me, that was probably a point for me to pivot. But, when you're in Swami's presence, you think, of course he's God. Where is the doubt about it? But then you come back away from him, and I think everybody's journey is like this. You start to doubt. Really? I mean, maybe I just got carried away there. And then I came back and I was again packing a suitcase. And this for me was, I think, my pivotal point in my journey towards Swami. I had to take a suitcase out from the loft. So I climbed up the ladder, and the ladder was quite high. And I pulled that box. But these are those step ladders which can actually collapse. But with the power of me pulling off the ladder, the ladder collapsed. And I found myself falling backwards. It's amazing how much time you have when you're falling backwards. It may be just a minute, but you are so aware of every minute. And behind me was a really sharp old dressing table. So I was telling myself, your brain is going to come out. It's going to hit that. And I was going like that. I think the ladder went to about that much. And I said, Ayyo, if you're God, save me. And I felt a palm in the middle of my back, just pushed me like that. I went back in front, clung on to the loft slab, and the ladder straightened itself. Don't ask me how, but a very humbled, very stunned young person came down those steps and decided that for some reason, for whatever reason, he saved me. I need to do something back. And that's how my journey with Sundaram started. I came to listen to the bhajans. I heard like all of you sitting and singing, and I could sing those days. So I thought how wonderful it would be for me to sing bhajans. So I remember earlier on they used to sell books outside. I went and asked those ladies, I said, I want to sing bhajans, little knowing there was so much protocol and such a process involved in getting into this whole thing. But they just laughed. And they said, adella romba dooram. Neenga modalla vandu join pannunga organization. So I walked a little further down and I'm thinking, how does one find out anything about this organization? A very elderly gentleman came up to me here outside, gave me a sandalwood frame about like maybe it was about 18 inches size with the picture of Swami in it. Put it into my hand, and before I could say anything, he walked away. I was like looking at it, but when I looked at, I didn't know who I had to thank. So I took this picture and walked towards the gate where my mother was talking to some lady, and she introduced me to Vidya Aunty. And Vidya Aunty, that was the beginning of probably all the grace that I've received in my life. She was at the gate and she said, what are you doing? I had just graduated and I was just doing odd things. I said, nothing in particular. She said, come and join me and work with me for Bal Vikas. So that's the way I joined the organization, not through any great way to figure out. I just reported at her house the next morning. And from then on, I think the next decade was just, if you ask me, heavenly days. Because it was spent entirely in, around, and with Swami. He put me with them. He told them that I was their protege and they had to take care of me. So the next several years I started working on Bal Vikas. I went to there was a guru called Rajam Kailasam, on Chemiers Road. I first started attending classes at her house. Then I got my own class here in Sundaram, which was a huge blessing and a huge learning. I had 2 sets of students from the slums and then regular kids. So I spent many happy years teaching Bal Vikas, sitting on the steps of the Shirdi Baba Mandir, alongside which I also got involved in doing a lot of work with Swami. But I think that the first most amazing thing that happened was that I was gifted many darshans of Swami. The more I saw, the more obsessive I became. Every month I was in Puttaparthi or Whitefield with them, and I thought it was his duty to smile at me because he did it. So I'm like, if he didn't smile at me, I would cry and say, why? What did I do? Why didn't you smile at me? Why didn't you look at me? So I would go back and cry. And Vidya auntie used to tell me, நீ இந்த மாதிரி பண்ணினா உன்னை இனிமேல் நான் கூட்டின்னு வர போகிறதில்ல புட்டபர்த்திக்கு ரொம்ப படுத்துற. But she never stopped. I also never stopped. And those days actually, you know, only that low compound wall was there in Puttaparthi. So after darshan, Swami would go off inside. I would run and go stand opposite his door, going on saying, come out, come out. I think I can be awarded for being the biggest nag on the planet. I really bother Swami on a second to second basis. So going on bothering his brain until he would come out. Every day he came out of that door. And so I started feeling really blessed and very important. And all the work for the 60th birthday started, so lots of construction. So Swami would walk from Prashanti Nilayam to Purna Chandra, take the car, drive around to see all the construction. Wherever he went, I was there. Somehow, because all I did was to loiter around that mandir. There was a very stern Mataji. I'm sure some of you have seen a huge Punjabi lady people were terrified of her. I used to go and say, please can I wait here next to you? And she'd say, no beta, of course not. Swami doesn't like young girls to be sitting here. If some organization person comes, then you can come and sit. Then that was the next thing. I hope somebody comes, I hope somebody comes. Always somebody would come, I would go sit, take my namaskaram. So I became a very spoiled, indulged child of Swami's. Then I joined the bhajan group. I sang only when Swami was not there, which was huge irritation for me, because those days I think life was very different. It was all monitored by older people, and I never ever got a chance to sing in front of Swami. And I am not known for my good behavior or my good temper. I was crying buckets, saying, you don't care about me, you're not allowing me to sing. My battles from then to now are always only with Swami. So finally that chance came in Abbotsbury, because we were allowed to sing when Swami was not there, which is not a great deal. So I remember singing Ao Gopala Giridhari, and a Giridhari actually came. He entered, and when the minute he came inside, one of the seniors grabbed the mic and she started singing. I was so heartbroken that this one chance also went away. And you're not, you know, all these girls in the bhajan group know you sit with a lot of discipline. You don't move your head anywhere. You have no emotions on your face. I was sobbing buckets in my inside at the sheer unfairness of what happened to me. Not for 1 second did I let it go. Swami, in his infinite mercy, that day, instead of doing the rounds among the devotees, entered the hall, went straight onto the stage and stopped the bhajan. For me, that was like, it was just so much grace, because for Swami, a young girl, it doesn't matter who you are. I had no claim to fame except that I bothered him all the time. But my prayer was enough for him to allow me to have the conviction to continue on a journey which was not particularly easy. So one time we were in Kodi, and I actually after that quit the bhajan group, which was also very arrogant of me, I realize now. But I said, it's okay. If I don't sing in front of you, I'm singing in the house. You can hear me there. So went to Kodaikanal, and those days he used to stay in V. Srinivasan's house. So there would be hardly like 100 people there. And that day it was Sri Ram Navami. So you see, I've already told you I was spoiled. So that morning when I went for darshan, Swami didn't even kandify. He didn't even look at me. That was enough for me to starve for the day, get angry, be upset, did nothing. Went back, and then I said, oh, why should I bother to come and sit in the front? Anyway, you can't be bothered to look at me. I'll sit somewhere at the back. I mean, that's how stupid I was anyway, but I sat at the back. And then because it was Sri Ram Navami, General Mahadevan came running out, where is Rekha, where is Rekha? We have to sing bhajans. So there I was. So I came up in the front, and I used to sing on 6, 6.5 and 7, which were my shrutis. But that harmonium was 4, 4.5 and 5. I didn't even know how to go so low, but I had to growl out in that little harmonium. And so I started singing Satya Gurudev, Raha Dikao Prabhu, and he came to me. he stood in front and he said, பாவம் ஒன்றுமே சாப்பிடல தண்ணி கூட குடிக்கல எங்கேயோ கிணறுலேருந்து பாடின்னு இருக்க. He said, and I am trying to have this moment of great merging with Swami, but he didn't allow me to do it. He kept chatting. And then he said, husband enga? And I was neither engaged nor was I looking for anybody. I was still on my battle to say no. Then, நீ பார்க்கல கேட்டில் நின்றுட்டு இருக்கான் பாரு, நான் கூட்டின்னு வந்துட்டேன். Anyway, he finished all this, then he walked down the row, he found Vidya auntie and said, உன் ப்ராட்டிஜிக்கு என் மேலே ரொம்ப கோவம், ஒன்றுமே சாப்பிடல, உள்ள கூட்டு சாப்பாடு போடு, he told her. And then he came back, and by then I was really upset because I wanted to sing to Swami. I did not want to be reacting to a non-stop conversation. So I felt that moment was stolen from me. Then he came, and it's only 4 of us singing, so I knew I wouldn't get a chance again to sing. So I sat down over there, and I'm looking at him, he's sitting there, and I'm like, how can you do this to me? How can you do this to me? Suddenly the girl next to me who was supposed to sing got cold feet. So the harmonium got tossed back into my hand. Then in that low growling voice, because it was not my pitch, I managed to sing Ram Rahim Ko Bajne Wale. It was, I think, one of the most sublime experiences in my life because that has Tumi Ho Gita, Tumi Ramayan, Tumi Ho Veda Puran. So every time I'm telling him Tumi Ho Gita, Tumi Ramayan, Ellathuko he nodded, and then I forgave him for that time. It didn't stop. The next day I was leaving to come back. So having been spoiled, every evening he would call a bunch of us inside. And then Swami would talk about wonderful stories. There would just be about 10 of us inside. One of the best stories he told us was about Kannappan. You know, the person who gouged out his eyes because he was a devotee of Shiva. And I can still remember how Swami was trying to show how with his leg to mark the space for the second eye, he gouged it out. And, you know, he told us that story. And then he said, Swami has many, many devotees, hundreds, thousands, lakhs of devotees. But who is the devotee that Swami will select? That is what you should aspire for. And so that became my next life's goal, temper and all. I wanted to be that devotee that Swami chose and thought I was worth all his attention. But next morning I forgot because I was leaving, he didn't come and bless me to leave. So again the temper flared up. I got up and I was walking alone and going to the cottage I was staying in. And suddenly I heard the rustle of tires. So I looked back. I saw the Swami's car approaching. I just moved to the side and I said, no need for me to turn and look at him because he's ignoring me anyway today. So I won't bother. So I just turned and I stood like that. But Swami being Swami, I said, you're not like a mother or a father. A parent has to see off the child. You did not do that for me today. I've come alone. You did not see me off. So the car comes and he made them stop the car next to me. Then he brought down his window and then he blessed me and gave me an Abhaya Hastam and all. I was mollified. That's all it took. And then I came back. So it was like years and years of so many beautiful experiences with Swami. One time actually, my mother decided that he had to come to our house. This was in 1985. So we came to Sundaram, we went inside and we were waiting for Swami to come down the steps. Then my mother called him and said, Swami, engathukku varano Swami. So he told her, Puttaparthilendu na vandirukken, ungathukku na varamatena, he said. And true to his word, the next morning he came. But he also continued this husband rant along with me. Everybody in Sundaram thought I was either engaged or married or getting married because he would come to me in the line and say, Bombay lane the kootan vanditen gate la irkan paru, where is your husband? He kept asking me, where is your husband? And every time I say, I don't know, Swami. Finally in 1985 when he asked me, I said, I don't know, Swami, only you know. And that was the time I had taken another devotee for whom he materialized his pendant along with the chain and he put it for her. So forever he would materialize things for people who came along with me, but I never got anything. So my jealousy was like, how can you be like this? I'm bringing these people. First time they're coming, they're getting things. I don't get anything. So every time I would ask him, Swami, எனக்கு எதனா ஒரு token கொடுங்கோ, because I wanted to wear something or hold on to something. And every time he'll say, I'm giving you everything. So finally, I think it was my father's 75th birthday in Puttaparthi. Again, he said, I said, Swami, ஒரு token கொடுங்கோ, Swami. And he said, நான் தான் கொடுத்துட்டே இருக்கேனே உனக்கு. I said, Swami, 40 வருஷமா இப்படியே சொல்லிட்டு இருக்கீங்க, நான் டோக்கன் கேட்குறேன், நீங்கள் இதுவே சொல்லிட்டு இருக்கீங்க, Swami. Then he put his hands on his heart and he said, Bangaru, from here I'm giving you everything. After that, I can't go, it was like too much of a blessing. It would have shown me up in very poor light. And that was a turning point in our life in many ways, because one was that Rangaraj, my husband, who Swami selected for me, was also there, and he's a surgeon. And how Swami went into his life is very interesting. His family were all Shirdi Baba devotees, and I was happy, Baba, Baba, but not my Baba. But that's the one Swami chose. So at the same time, I also had a proposal from a Parthi Baba devotee family. And of course, without sight unseen, for me, I thought, yeah, Parthi Baba is always welcome. So my parents were going to ask Swami, because he said, bring and come. For years, he would say, wait, keep it. He just never gave his permission. So finally, my mother said, I don't know which one to take and go. So in their Swami room, there is a clay Shirdi Baba statue, and behind that is a Puttaparthi Baba picture. And my mother used to wake up at 4 o'clock to go clean the puja room. She opened the door and something she moved. That Shirdi Baba idol was at the door, facing the entrance. Swami's picture had fallen down and crashed, broken into many, many pieces. But this picture, which should have fallen on the idol, nothing happened. It was there looking at her. In her head, she decided, Swami வந்து இந்த Shirdi Baba family-ஓட தான் போனோன்னு சொல்றார். So let's take his horoscope and go. So poor things went, and they've gone like 7 or 8 times, and Swami would shoot it down. I was personally very happy, because I was having a lovely time with Swami and Sundaram and Whitefield and Puttaparthi. I was Kodaikanal. I was just orbiting in all these places. So he actually looked at my father. My father was so tense that day, because every horoscope was rejected. This was not even a horoscope. This was just his name, his age, what he does, and that's about it, who his parents were. So Swami waited patiently in front of Appa. Appa thought he dropped the letter. He was searching everywhere. Then Swami leaned forward, pulled his pocket like that, took the letter out. Idida poi pannu, he said. So my parents were damn elated. They came back, and since I've done all this, you find somebody, otherwise I won't get married now. He has found, here's a person I've never seen in my life. I have to get married to him. I have to see him. It was terrifying. So I needed signs from Swami, of course, to tell me, yes, this is the right path for you. So many of you will know Devanathan. He was the bhajan convener in Sundaram. They used to have bhajans in their house on Saturdays. So I went for that bhajan that day, and I said, Swami, this is Dharma Sankatam for me. You need to drop a flower when I sing. Otherwise, I will not say yes to this man. So anyway, I sang, but with my eyes tightly closed. I did not see the many flowers which fell. So I had only one more chance to sing. And somebody who was sitting next to me said, open your eyes and sing. So the second song, I opened my eyes and sang. It was Padmanabha Narayana. So the last part of it is repetitions. You can go faster and faster and faster. The huge Swami picture there was a thick garland on it. As I was about to finish the repetitions, that garland, it cut in the middle where it's joined, like, the top where it's joined, that bottom part where the kunjalam hangs, it actually cut like that. It swung out like that and it fell like that. So then I said, okay, I have now got my answer. Let's do this. So then we met. Then I went to Shirdi. I went to their house. Everywhere there was a Shirdi Baba picture, but nothing of Swamis. The next day, actually, I was supposed to go to Puttaparthi for the 60th birthday, about a month in advance because of all the work to be done there. And the flight to Chennai from Vizag got cancelled. So I was really upset because going to Puttaparthi in those days was not easy. And if I didn't go with uncle and auntie, I had no one to go with. But I was sitting in their house talking, and my father's company manager came for a visit. And he said there was a devotee in his office, a Swami devotee, who was on leave, who waited at the office that day to say that, and the Mr. Raman or the daughter is a big devotee of Swami's, you please give this picture to her. So he gave the picture. That picture came to me. I'm looking at that picture because I did get his picture in their house, very mollified and happy. And in 5 minutes after that, his father called and said, some flight from Chennai is coming empty to take back the 50 passengers who were stranded there. So for just 50 of us, the plane came. I came back to Chennai, and the next day I was off to Puttaparthi. It was just amazing. Why would a plane come just for 50 people? But that is Swami. You can sit wherever you are. You can pray for whatever you want. He is always listening. And I had to teach my children, especially my son, who was very naughty, extraordinarily naughty. And I used to tell him, Ajay, I am actually, your father and I are trying to raise you according to Swami's teachings. But நீ ஒண்ணுமே கேட்க மாட்டேன்ற. One day Swami is going to call you and tell you that this is all the things you are doing. 13-year-old boy would laugh and he think, Amma is slightly nuts. I mean, Swami is in Puttaparthi. How is he going to know what I did in Madras in my house? So in that same interview, he suddenly looked at him and he said, hey, what is your name? So he gave his name. What do you want to be, Ajay? He asked him. Till then, he was a really playful kid. So he looked at him and he said, I want to be a doctor like my father. Father and I were stunned. That was the first time we heard about it. And so Swami said, yes, be a doctor, be a good doctor, but no capitation for you. Your father works very hard, so you should only get in on a merit seat. And then he suddenly looked at him. Enakku anna patti ellam theriyum, Ajay. From the door, you will throw your backpack inside the house. It will go hit the wall and fall there. Amma will say, go up and study. You will watch TV. She'll say, don't eat chocolate. You will be eating chocolate. Then you will hear her steps come up. You'll quickly crush the paper, drop it behind the TV, switch off the light and go to the next room. So all the silly, naughty things this boy ever did was recounted by Swami. So many years later now, when we don't have Swami's physical presence, it's amazing to see that Swami is still answering so many prayers. Even in my life, it was very difficult for me to understand how to live without him. But because he gave so much, it doesn't mean that he actually didn't ignore me. I used to call them my Vanavasam years. There were days and days and years and months where he would look through me. He'll bless this person, he'll bless that person. But two things I have learned and I would like to share with you all. Swami has his own plan with time, the timing of things. You can pray for many things. He told Ajay, do bioscience, do medicine. We thought in our ignorance and stupidity, what is Swami saying bioscience? I mean, you have to do science to do medicine. But really, that was not it. Because Ajay went on to becoming a doctor and qualified for American board, and then decided he did not want to be a clinician because he was working with HIV AIDS in CMC Vellore, and he decided that there is so much funding, there is so much help, but the policies were all very wrong. So he came back and told both of us, I want to write policy. I may not be a very rich man, but I can affect millions of lives. Neither of us knew what he was talking about, but we got guidance from a friend. He then went on to do public health. Today he is in the WHO as the technical lead for HIV, writing guidelines for ministries. Swami told us when he was 13. So that is the length, almost like 16 years later it came to pass. And the second very miraculous thing is a very recent thing in our lives. I took my daughter Aarti to Swami when she was 5 years old. And when Swami came in the line, I said, Swami, my daughter Kutin Vandirken, please bless her. So Swami put his hand on her head like that. At that time, I was just happy. I didn't think beyond it. Then when we went, we had the interview and all of that. She was 5, and he said, "Om per enne?" So she said, Aarti. And he pretended he couldn't hear. He said, "Ah?" So she said, Aarti. So he told her, "Nee Swami ka Aarti." And he looked at me and he said, "Inda Aarti ka Swami Aarti ippave eduthachu kalyanthukku munnadi." And for years I didn't understand what it meant. Later on I thought, could be, in his physical form he is not there. I can't go running over there to ask him, Swami, please bless her. But it was not that. She got married last month in August, end of August. Just as I was ready to leave and the family was ready to leave for her London wedding, my husband had to go through a major surgery. So none of us from our family could be present at her wedding. She initially wanted to cancel her wedding, but he was recovering well, and we said, please don't cancel the wedding, go ahead with the wedding. It was very difficult as a challenge and as a journey for us as her parents to not be present to see her get married. But I was okay that, he took us through so much, that he had health issues. If we are human, we have to go through health issues. You have to come out of it. But I could not understand why on earth did I miss my own daughter's wedding. It was very difficult for me to wrap my mind around it, especially since I'm a wedding planner. I have done thousands of weddings. And finally, I had one to do in Chennai that day on the day of her marriage. But we didn't make it for her wedding. While I was sitting and talking to Swami in my head, then the answer came so clearly. That is why he said, "Na vanda aarti eduthachu," because he went there. He made that wedding happen. He made it a beautiful, beautiful, happy occasion for that child. We saw it online, and the rest is history. My husband is back at work, 100% normal. She had the lovely day that she always imagined. And the greatest miracle of all is she's in the hall today hearing me say this. So I just want to end saying that I have not done any great things in my life. I am not fancy, wealthy, entitled. I don't move mountains. I don't do great acts of seva. But from the beginning of my journey 45 years ago until the present time, Swami listens to me. And that's actually, there are a few reasons for it. Right in the beginning, he told me that the first quotation he ever told me was, "Follow the master, face the devil, fight to the end, finish the game." At that time, I could understand what follow the master was. But what are we fighting? I thought every challenge, because the next thing he told me was, life is a challenge, play it. You all heard that quotation. So I heard that. And then the third thing he told me was, mad monkey, bumps, jumps. Your mind is everywhere. You get angry even with Swami. But that's only because of your age. You have lot of bhakti for me, he said, and he touched my head. And somebody who was with me, he was standing next to him. I did namaskaram and got up. And while I was at his feet, he asked that devotee, "Is she a good girl?" So that friend said, "Yes, Swami, very good girl." So when I got up and stood, then he put his hand properly on my head and he said, "Yes, very good girl," he told me. And as far as I am concerned, I don't need human validation. I don't need anybody else in the world today to tell me I'm good, I'm bad. It's not that I'm perfect. I do make a lot of mistakes. My temper is a little better these days. I am reining it in a bit. But the trick to this is Swami used to use a lovely example of the mother monkey. It leaps from tree to tree, high branches, and its baby will be clinging on. The mother never bothered. It just swung. But the baby clung on for dear life. And he said that's how devotion should be. And so that is what I'm aspiring to do. It's not that I haven't gone into the depths. It's not that I haven't seen the crests. Every day is a different challenge. But I think that the only reason that an ordinary human being who has not done anything extraordinary has boundless grace from Swami is because I trust him, I have faith in him, and I believe that regardless of what comes my way, that's the journey for me to learn from. And he's not there to change my karma. It's foolish to pray to him and say, "Idu seri pannungo, adu seri pannungo." It's not his job to be fixing everybody's karmas. There'll be chaos in the world. It is his job to keep you steady. It is his job for him to shine a light on that path you're going to navigate and trust that you will never be led astray. So that's where I am today, and that's what I would like to leave you with it, because I think that I am the devil. It's not life. I have finally figured out when I learned to surrender without micromanaging. You know how we go to this temple and pray and say, "Swami, Swami, please, can you do this?" Then we come back and tell him how we want that done. Then we tell him when we want it done. We actually try to micromanage divinity, and that for me was the greatest learning, to move away from the good, the bad, the indifferent. It's all meant for us. So there's just one thing I want to say to Swami as I wind up. Thank you, Swami, for a journey that has no end, for a gift as sweet as surrender, and for a journey that is from my heart to yours. Jai Sai Ram.
Thank you so much. I think one of the most open, candid talks, I would say, that personally I have ever heard. This evening Samarpan session has indeed been a divine journey filled with pure love, reflection and inspiration. A heartfelt gratitude to Mrs. Rekha Rangaraj, who has so beautifully and soulfully shared her experiences, spiritual insights and lessons learned. Thank you, Mrs. Rekha, for taking us along your journey, for reminding us when we make Swami the center of our lives, every challenge becomes an opportunity and every moment an act of worship. We pray to Bhagwan to continue to bless you with health, happiness, and the strength to inspire many more hearts through your life of devotion and creativity. As a token of our love, request Mrs. Rajalakshmi, a senior Sevadal, to honor Mrs. Rekha Rangaraj.